Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. She is somebody that tells amazing stories. You can call her Heyoka. That's somebody that tells stories. And many times they have a direction that can enhance your life, give you some clarity on certain things, things that we can relate to. Janis Reed is back with us. Hi, Janis. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good today. Um, it's been a nice week. This morning we woke up to 53 degrees, and tonight we'll go to sleep with 22 degrees.
Really? Wow.
So, yeah, we're going to have a rip snap today. And it got me thinking about things. I wanted to talk about a little bit about ego today, because I have one.
Doesn't everybody have an ego?
Man, we just can't get around it. I finally figured out, though, everything has an opposite. Everything has a cause and effect, opposite, polarity. And, we just have to deal with these things. So I pulled out my Kybalion. I have learned to do a lot of things because Spirit forced my nose and pushed it into it. And I've always been a sensitive child. And then the lightning hit and all heck broke loose. But I'm like a lot of other people. I get confused. I get lost. And one of the things about me is, like, third grade, I was in my third school and somebody said, hey, you should write a book. And so from third grade on, every couple of years, somebody says, hey, Janis, you should write a book, because there's just this a mass of experiences within this small frame. And I write little stories and I write little books, but I'm too busy living my life to stop and write things down. I mean, my kids don't believe it. They were there for a lot of it. Who's going to believe a story I write down? But in order to gain knowledge, to get a foothold, it's good that we read. We read about things like us, things we're curious about. So as a little child, I grew up learning the Bible. Mom was the daughter of a Southern Baptist pair of Sunday school teachers. I didn't learn just a few words, but my mom would quote Bible for me growing up. I skipped my knee, well, this and that. I absorbed the Bible without realizing even that the Bible was a Bible. It was just the way of life. You do what's right. You try to do good. You don't hurt people on purpose, because it'll come back to you, sticks and stones, all that stuff. As I grew older and started to realize there were other ways to think about God, I told my dad I was going to change my religion. I told him I was going to change my faith. He threw a fit. You can't change your faith. You can change your religion, but you can't change your faith. You either have faith or you don't have faith. Well, okay, so I shut up about it and kept looking. There's a lot of different faiths in the world dressed up as religions, but there's really just the one faith. He's right. He's right. And either you have it or you don't. We can go through book after book instead of encyclopedias and professional talks and TED Talks, and it still breaks down to we each have free will. And free will is what causes our ego to have problems. That's it. The free will we were given lets us imagine our world. The first principle in the Kybalion is that everything is mental, which made me laugh because a lot of people say I'm mental. But the Kybalion is this little tiny book that's already written. It's been written over 100 years, 1909, I think. And it was written by some people on the cover that say the three initiates. So when I was in my 20s and discovered this book by the three initiates, just discovering the book was an experience. I opened it up, and instead of 14 million parables and verses and translations, this thing came with 7 principles. I was born on the 7th day of the 7th month, so 7th principle sounded pretty good to me. I can handle 7. I can almost remember 7. And the first one is that everything is mental. We make this life up. We create it every day. We make it up. It wasn't there before. And then we wake up and boom, it's today. Did you ever notice that? Where is today when we're asleep? Who knows? So I started looking about, excuse me, this idea of mentalism and how it relates to ego. And ego has kind of gotten away from us in that we think we actually control the world. Well, we do, but it takes a village, not just one. When a group of people come up with the same idea and the same intention, and they imagine it perfectly, it tends to manifest. With our free will, we have the opportunity to manifest anything we want. Really, from so and so winning to so and so losing, and somebody else just showing up from the sidelines. Whatever we imagine becomes. And my ego keeps me in check because I know that I talk for God. What most people don't know is that they also talk for God. They just don't listen. And so I'm here, and people like me to just kind of get in your face and say, hey, man, are you listening? We make this up. People have been so caught up in the drama of stories that other people make up, we forget we can make it up too. We can make up a new story. Do you ever wake up in the morning and just decide, okay, it's raining, everything hurts, I'm going to have a good day anyway? Did you ever do that? Most of us just power through something. Our ego says, well, if we don't do it, people are going to think badly of us. But our free will says, well, if we don't do it, it's not going to get done, or it won't be done right, and I'll have to do it anyway. Free will and ego are like both sides of one coin. We can't really have one without the other. So I think that rather than complaining and bickering about the stories that we are participating in that we did not create, we can step back. Maybe we don't need to be in that story. There's a lot of politics on television. Everybody's picking a side, and other people are saying, no, there's no sides, and yeah, there's only my side. And yeah, it's only our side. So if we work, united we stand. I mean, that's kind of an American, I'm going to just take that phrase, say, yeah, if we all pull together, we pull strong. We were made with free will, no strings attached. Do with this life as you will, and harm none, people forget. Stop harming people. If we just start like recreating, we can just recreate the world. And it won't matter if we are in our physical skins or if we are in Poughkeepsie. They've got a great railroad train there. It won't matter because in our minds, we are in the state of correct. Perfection, maybe not, but we're okay. We're correct for the moment, for the time, whatever's happening. Yes, Junior's just come in. He's dragging the muddy dog by the ear, and it's all across the kitchen floor. Okay, so that's the moment. The moment of you and I talking. This is this moment, and worries about it that I had yesterday. Well, they don't really play today because they don't count. They can't count. Worries take up space in my mind, and then I can't imagine the good stuff. So to try to con ourselves into not looking for the good stuff because we're trying to cover up and pretend the bad stuff isn't there. That's just, there's some word for that, Pollyanna maybe. The trick is to look at all the horrible stuff and say, well, what is it for? Why? Why is it horrible? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it was just horrible because Mama said it was, and I still believe her. Maybe I can learn from it. maybe I can learn from a piece of it, and then I can let the rest of it go. We get faced with challenges like me trying to chase a camera around a light. It's an opportunity. And that's a state of mind. That's free will. I can say, man, this is driving me nuts, or I'm going to figure this out. This is today's game. I'm going to figure out how to do this. So a lot of my ego is caught up in America's ego. America was born on the 4th. I was born on the 7th. So we flip back and forth a lot of comparisons. It's that lucky number 7. Everything we imagine, we find. It's like looking for what you lost. It's always in the last place you look. What if you imagine that today was the right day and that the weather's going to change because I need that rain, I need that snow, I need the cold wet, I need the plants to go into sleep for a little while so they'll bloom in the spring. I need these things. Okay, it means I don't get to skip around in my shorts and my t-shirt anymore. Not for a while. But it means something better is going to happen in the spring. Things that stymie us now give us a chance to develop grace, to be graceful as we accept our own free will, to not be snotty, but rather to know that everyone has one, and for me to encourage you to use your free will is a lot more interesting for me than to say, did you see what he did last night? I can't believe they let him do that. My mother, and to bicker and argue. I'm confused about what happened last night. What do you think that meant? What was that about? What was it for? I can't imagine how many times I've looked up. I don't know, it's left over from my Southern Baptist days of glory. I look up, I say, what is this? Sometimes I ask what the shit is. Yeah, God made language too.
You know what? It's just a way to express yourself. There's nothing wrong with it.
It is. It is. You know, it's one more word. So, okay.
Janis, what you said, there's 2 ways to handle what happened.
Yeah, talk to me.
You can, instead of reacting to it loud, how horrible, how can you do that? Whatever that situation is. Right. Be curious. Why did that happen? What do we learn from that? What's going on there?
What was that about? Sometimes you have to wait then and wait for the answer to come.
And then there's that. And you know what?
And then there's that.
Sometimes
I hate that part.
Sometimes the answer doesn't come and you need to accept that. But I part of me believes it's a part of the plan. Whatever the plan is, the universe has, whatever it is, someday we'll all know whatever the plan is.
If everybody knew everything all at once and we already knew everything, what would be the point of being here? I want to wake up and see what happens tomorrow. Do you remember when Y2K was the biggest thing in the whole world? And the entire universe was going to stop because it was going to go from 1999 to 2000 and the computers would all freak out?
Yeah.
Really, at that moment, we thought that was the biggest problem in the whole world. And now I look around and I snicker because I have to remember when that happened. That was just so long ago and so minuscule in importance. But my ego is still here. My free will is still here. Computer technology comes and goes.
But guess what? We worried about it for nothing because
we imagined
it. There was no issues. It was for naught.
We went mental. We just went mental.
Yeah.
We played with the first principle. Yeah. It goes from mentalism to correspondence. I wrote them down. From mental into what corresponds with what we imagine. So right there, the first 2 principles, that's the whole recipe. Really, everything else is pretty much gravy and decoration. What you imagine perfectly so does create. And this little teeny tiny book, this Kybalion, I don't have to write a book. This thing is here. This little book hinges together the Bible, and as far as I've read, the Tarot and several other philosophies, because there's no religion worked into it. This is like it's a recipe. Do these things and ponder, and you'll figure it out. It helps me understand the Bible. It helps me understand the encyclopedias. It helps me understand my neighbors that are so much different than me. These 7 principles, I've stood in the grocery store and used them. Well, if I do this, I'll end up with that. To find a short handful of things that you can keep up with to keep your head level are great. A lot of people just do that naturally. I have to create something. I'm too curious. No dog with a squirrel could outrun me. I get curious and chase after things. And my attention span is short because I get caught up in it. So these 7 principles kind of bring me back to a center point and align me back up with what I think I'm supposed to be doing.
What are, Janice, what are the 7 principles?
I'm going to read them to you. I got them right here so that I wouldn't screw it up and say it in the wrong order and somebody complain. But the first one is mentalism. The world is all, everything is all. There's nothing outside the all. You think about that. And the next one is correspondence. Everything corresponds, everything vibrates, everything has a polarity. Everything with that polarity has a rhythm. Everything has a rhythm. Sometimes if we just wait, cycles come back around. The astrology will show you that. After the rhythm, there's a cause and effect. If you do this, there will be something that happens as a result of that. And the last one is gender. Gender took me years and years to figure out because everything has a gender. Today's LGBTQ people, I have loved so many of them. I'm so lucky to be in their circles. They're trying to find the gender they identify with. And it isn't an obvious gender in American society today. Might have been fine, 6,000 years ago, but it's like a heyoka. We don't always fit in whatever the moment of the day is. We are responding to how people treat us, the free will of others, and we're all growing through the free will of ourselves. I'm an unusual viewpoint. Maybe your gay neighbor is an unusual viewpoint. Maybe your straight neighbor is the unusual viewpoint. But it's all got a gender and it's all mental. It's all what we imagine it to be. I would like to train myself to stop imagining the worst. Yes, we're all going to die. But, maybe that'll be great.
What's so bad about that? It's called life. What are you going to do?
It's a part of life. I've been kicked out of heaven so many times. There's a joke in my family that God just doesn't want me and the devil is terrified he might get me. Death just keeps evading me. But I know that one day, whenever I'm finished with whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing here on this planet, I'll win and I'll get to leave. For me, this skin is temporary, like this shirt. Not everybody thinks that way. My mother, as she passed, I trained her, we worked together, we began to dream together. So that as she passed, after she passed, she was still in the dream world. She didn't fear death. All she was doing was going to sleep and dream. And she still dreams with me. My father, years later, he didn't have that same mindset. As much as he was like my mother, he was a little worried because he'd never been there before. And even though I had claimed to be, he always doubted that stuff. But that was his free will to deal with that. So he went upstairs and laid down and went to sleep and said goodnight. That was what he did. He left. Everybody leaves, but it's the grace that we live with. That grace stays with us whether we're in a skin or out of a skin, I think.
Do you feel, Janice, that when somebody crosses over, passes, however you want to phrase it, that their energy is still here? This is a vessel. We're in body. But the spirit is there. Maybe it goes someplace else. Maybe it comes back and shows you a sign. And you,
Yeah, yeah. I've had enough experiences, and I've heard a lot of other people that I have a suspicion. I believe the persona, the personality, will hold together for a period after I leave. My personality will probably keep want to stay around to make sure that some people are okay, and I know they're in an iffy ground, so I know that there may be some way I can influence them or their world, even if I'm out of a skin. But then I've also known people that when they were done, yeehaw, they screamed and went out of here. They were gone. They have never been seen or heard from again. So I think it's a free will on the other side as well. It's once we slip our skin, I don't think that we lose free will. I believe the different entities that have come and seen. One lady came up to me. I was on a trip out of the country, and this woman I didn't know came up to me. This happens, and she said, "I've heard you can help people that don't have skins anymore." I said, "Yeah, apparently that's true." She said she had a nephew that was trapped, and I asked, "What do you mean trapped?" She said, "Well, he's died, but he hasn't passed on. He's just like I can't talk to him. I can't help." She was used to helping people pass on. There's people, doulas, death doulas, and things, but this nephew of hers wouldn't talk to her, and all she could do was see that he was trapped. And she was getting scared because she didn't know what that meant. She asked if I could do anything about it. I said, "Well, get back with me later, and I'll see what I can do." So before she turned around, the kid was in my face. I could see where he was. He was like, he was hiding from his aunt. He was. He didn't want to deal with her. He didn't want to go where she told him to go or where thought he should aim for. And he had enclosed himself in, excuse me just a second. He had enclosed himself in something like a mirrored box. You couldn't see the box. If you look up in the sky, it was invisible, with the stars and things, because it reflected its surroundings from the outside. And on the inside, where this personality, where this little boy was, he was only looking at himself in the mirrors because he didn't want to deal with the aunt. And he had been convinced to her, excuse me, that when he died, she was going to help him. Well, when they found out that I was there, I had slipped inside that mirrored box with him, and I sat down, put my chin on my knees, and sat with him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, your aunt was worried." And it was as if you and I are talking. It wasn't wholly on high speech. I have a terrible cough. Sorry. um, I told him she was worried about him, that he needed to go. He said, "Well, what do I do? Because I don't want to deal with her." So we opened up one of the panels of the inside of his box, and he looked outside, and he was gone. So I left the box. There was no use for the box anymore, and I didn't know where he went. He just went wherever he needed to go. The way he left, he went where he was going. There was no question. He had a destination in mind. So I left. A couple hours later, the lady comes up and she says, "When will you get a chance to find out what you can do?" I said, "Oh, that's long gone." And I told her what happened. I did not mention he didn't want to deal with her. So she goes off in her own little world and she looks for her nephew. And she said, "Where is he? I can't find him." So one psychic proved the other psychic did something correct. But that kid was gone. He didn't want to come back. Hadn't seen from him since.
where did he wind up?
I have no idea. He went to his next place. I have limitations, and future personalities for any of us are going to be a blend of all of our personalities. What you did 4 lifetimes ago is going to come in when you have a lifetime 4 years from now, 4 lifetimes from now. It's always a blend. And it's really hard to decide, what's going to be in that blend and see that, because it's not formed yet. There's not even an inkling of it being formed yet. Babies, I have a better chance for because they're starting to solidify into one personality. Just after death, we still have that one personality. At a certain point, when our personalities are finished with this time space, likely that personality will recreate through its new experiences from this past lifetime with all of the other experiences and create a future version of myself, new, improved, maybe taller. You'll do the same. Everybody will do the same. So the grace that we die with will be the grace that we come in with. It's nice to be nice.
We're just about out of time, but I got to ask this question. When we leave, pass on, die, whatever, what happens to our ego?
Say it again?
What happens to our ego?
Our ego stays with its free will. That's what I've been made to understand, is that ego and free will stick together. You can't have the coin with just one side. You have to have both sides. Our free will help to recreate, heal, mend, destroy our egos. What we choose to believe creates our ego, feeds our ego. That's why I could never be a supermodel. I don't believe that.
It's always great hearing your viewpoints, your stories. And I believe, like you believe, we have the choice.
We do.
Every morning. And I know it sounds cheesy as hell. You have the choice.
We have the choice.
Why would you choose to be negative? Yes, life ain't easy. There's a lot going on. We all go through things. But why choose the negative part of it? You know, when people are negative around you, why choose to be with them when you could just go the other way? I think we feed on that. And that feeds our free will and makes us make choices that we probably shouldn't be making. But Janis, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's your email address again?
Send it to the goddess Janis at hotmail.com. I hope you put it up on a screen somewhere, but it's GODDESS JANIS at hotmail.com. Sort of like Janis Joplin went to heaven and started singing. Only I can still sing. So send a note to the goddess Janis. Ask her what's up. I'll help you out with this little book, The Kybalion. Talk to you about things that are important to you instead of me.
Love it. We're starting to lose you on the and we're over time here, but I'm just losing you.
Oh,
might be your internet now. I think you're back now, but yeah, heard the email address clearly. If anybody wants to reach out, talk to Janis, get directed, some clarity on some things, that would be fantastic. Janis, always great having you here.
I'm always lucky to be here. Thank you for letting me be here.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.